Very good morning to one and all. Welcome to the session BA History Program, second semester. I am Sudhaji, Assistant Professor, GFGC, Ripanpet. The topic we are going to discuss today is about Sher Shah and his administration. Today we are going to deal with part 1. In the previous session, students have learnt about life and achievements of Babur, the establishment of Mughal Empire by defeating Hemu in the first Battle of Panipat in 1526 AD. They also knew about the subsequent battles such as the Battle of Kanwa, Chanderi and Gagra to lay the firm foundation of Mughal Empire. Learning objectives of today's session: to enable the students to understand the administrative system of Sher Shah, to make them to understand the new spirit which he infused in old institution of Delhi Sultanates and turned the whole administrative structure as an ideal to be followed by his successors. Learning outcome of today's session: at the end of the session, students will identify 4 ministries of central administration of Sher Shah. They will recognize the division of empire such as Sarkars and Parganas. They will appreciate autonomous village communities which existed during Sher Shah's period. To begin with, Sher Shah, the formidable rival of Humayun, was a man of humble origin. Farid was his original name. He was the son of Hassan and grandson of Ibrahim Sur. After defeating Humayun in the Battle of Bilgram on 17th May 1540, he founded Sur dynasty and became the king of Delhi and ruled over North India from that central town. Sur dynasty was the last Afghan dynasty which ruled India in Delhi, and also this dynasty revived and reformed the old system of administration in the country and gave her peace, order and prosperity. Sher Shah was educated at Jaunpur. He started his career as a Jagirdar of Sasaram, Kavaspur and Tanda. His title was Sher Khan. He served under Bahar Khan Lohani. The central administration: Sher Shah was a benevolent despot who used his power for the welfare of his subjects. Like all rulers of Sultanate of Delhi, Sher Shah was a despot and possessed almost unlimited powers. But unlike his predecessors, he was a benevolent despot, exercising power for the benefit of the people. Still, all the strings of policy and civil and military powers were concentrated in his hands. His ministers were in charge of the daily routine work of administration and had no authority to initiate policy or to propose radical changes in the mode of transaction, business, or in the administrative setup. It was not humanly possible for one man to look after the interests of such a huge empire without the assistance of ministers. Consequently, Sher Shah had 4 ministries after the model of the Sultanate period. They were Diwan-e Wizarat, Diwan-e Aris, Diwan-e Rasalat and Diwan-e Insha. Now let us learn about the functions of each ministries. Let us start with Diwan-e Wizarat. He may also be called the Wazir. He was the Minister of Revenue and Finance and was therefore in charge of the income and expenditure of the empire. Besides, he exercised a general supervisory authority over other ministries. As Sher Shah had intimate knowledge of the working of the revenue department, he took an enlightened interest in the affairs of the department. We have it on the authority of the historians of the age of Akbar that Sher Shah daily looked into the abstract of income and expenditure of his kingdom and made enquiries about the state of finances and the arrears due from the Parganas. Let us move on to Diwani Aris. He was under the Aris-e-Mamalik, who in modern phraseology may be designated the army minister. He was not the commander in chief of the army, but was in charge of its recruitment, organization, and discipline. He had to make arrangement for payment of the salaries of the troops and officers and to look after the disposition of the army in the field of battle. But as Sher Shah was personally interested in the military department, he was very often interfered with the work of the Diwani Aris. We are told by the chronicles of the time that he was present at the enlistment of fresh recruits and he fixed the salary of individual soldiers and looked after their welfare as well. Now let us move on to Diwani Rasalat. It was the third ministry. He was also called Diwan-e Muhtasib. The minister in charge of this department may be called foreign minister. His duty was to be in close touch with ambassadors and envoys sent to the foreign states. He must also have been in charge of diplomatic correspondence and sometimes the charity and endowment department too was placed under him. Let's know about Diwani Insha. It was the fourth ministry. The minister in charge of this department had to draft royal proclamations and dispatches. His duty was also to communicate with governors and other local executive officers. Government records too were in his charge. Other than these departments, we have other ministers such as the chief Qazi, who was a justice, Barid-e-Mamalik, who was in charge of the intelligence department. He had a host of news writer and spies and news carrier to the royal dark. Lord High Steward was the king's household departments in charge, who kept watch over servants. Therefore, he enjoyed a high prestigious position. Let's move on to learn about provincial administration. He divided his empire into sarkars. They were not uniform in size. There are two theories about the administrative divisions of the empire during the reign of Sher Shah. Dr. Kuningo is of opinion that Sher Shah had no higher division than the Sarkar and that the provinces and provincial governors were the creation of Akbar. Dr. Saran, however, differs from this view and maintains that Sher Shah did have large military governorship and that were existed provinces in India long before the reign of Akbar. Neither of these theories is absolutely correct. Throughout the Sultanate period, including the reign of Sher Shah and his son Islam Shah, there were administrative divisions corresponding to provinces, but they were not uniform in size or incomes. They were not even called subas or provinces, but were known as iktas, which were assigned to important chiefs. Military governorship can be found in Lahore, Punjab, Malwa, and Ajmer as well. The Sarkar, Bengal, was in charge of Afghan officer. Let us now learn about sarkars. Each province was divided into number of sarkars, that is districts. There were two chief officers in every sarkar. One is Chief Shikdar and another is Chief Munsif. The first was guardian of considerable importance and had a respectable force under his command. His duty was to maintain law and order in the district and to undertake expeditions against rebellious zamindars. He was also required to supervise the work of Shikdars of the Parganas in his district. The chief munsif was primarily a judge. He had to decide civil cases, but at the same time, he seems to have been a supervisor of the work of amins and parganas. Both these officers must have had big official establishment of scores of clerks and accountants to help them in the discharge of their duties. The Pargana was the lowest unit of administration where we had the officers like Shikdar, who was a military officer, Amin, one Fotadar was also a treasurer, and there were two Karkuns who were meant for writing, and one Kunungo who was a semi-government official. Let's move on to village administration now. Sher Shah wisely recognized the autonomous village communities and maintained touch with them through the village officials, namely the Patwari and the Chaukidar. Every village of consequence constituted a commonwealth. There was a panchayat consisting of the elders of the village, which made arrangements for watch and ward, elementary education, sanitation, irrigation, and other matters. The panchayat also settled disputes. What we have today, Panchayat Raj, is example for the local self-government. You find out who was the father of local self-government in India. That's an assignment for you. As a conclusion, we can say that Sher Shah was one of the greatest administrators of medieval India. He did not create any new institution, no new ministry, but by breathing a new spirit in old institution, he turned the administrative system in the direction of popular good. Before winding the session, let us have a quick recapitulation what we have learned, the main points once again. The central administration. We have also learned about the four ministries after the model of the Sultanate period, provincial administration, the features of sarkars and parganas, and most importantly, village administration of Sher Shah. To prepare my speech, the book which I referred was The Mughal Empire by Ashirbadi Lal Srivastava, published by Shivalal Agarwal and Company. Hope all of you would have enjoyed the session. Thank you, one and all.